for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of That's a Shame. I'm Isaac, back at home, no longer in Edinburgh, no longer on the street or this bullshit, but I guess have to be thankful for it working at all. Phone method. This is a proper microphone. I've got a pop filter, and by my metaphorical digital side, joining me as always, sitting or kneeling, it's anyone's guess. It's Declan. How are you?
I'm very well. It's quite odd, actually. I'm sat at a table.
Ooh.
I've got my mic. I've got the pop filter attached. This is the first
We're
time
living
in
a luxury life.
absolute months. This is the first time since episode 15 that both of us have been in a normal position.
It's mad. There's barely a seagull in sight, as you said. There's no children playing basketball so loudly for me, but yet inaudibly once they actually came into the episode itself, just to fuck me off. It's just a different quality to the whole thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's art.
I'm glad to be here. I feel it's going to have quite a calm tone today because I'm really tired. I came back from Edinburgh last night. We got in at like 11 or something. And then my girlfriend had to move house the next day and had done no packing. And as I told you before the show, instead of, you know how when you move house, you've got boxes and bubble wrap and tape. There is some accoutrement that we associate with the process of house moving. If you imagine all of that was so
was
far
there.
away from her
it wasn't
flat,
there.
it was like a tiny little dot, but not in this universe, in one that's yet to be discovered. Maybe it will take the genius of Alton Towers scientists to uncover some dormant universe wherein this stuff had any relationship to her moving. So we moved in apple crates and vintage suitcases, like the most obscene hipster you will ever come across. It was quite an endurance process.
Moving stories always remind me of leaving university houses. Specifically in second year, because for my second year, I had an absurdly nice house. Do you remember my house in second year?
Was it?
It was the
where?
like
Where was it?
3-story townhouse on Barbican Road.
Yes, vaguely.
And it had
remember.
like the living room had a projector that was in the ceiling, and
Oh yeah, I do remember. Wow, that was nice.
yeah, and I was the last person to leave, which is always the worst position because obviously everyone fucks off and leaves all the cleaning to you. But thankfully, I lived with mugs who had who hadn't done that and had agreed to do some as well. But I was there still on the last day and last night, kind of clearing and sweeping and wiping. I remember that there are two moments that stand out to me particularly, which were at about 4 a.m. I was throwing all of the bottles in the house away, and there were hundreds, and I was out the back kind of putting them into the, like, really I wasn't chucking them, I was sort of like placing them into this bottle bank, and a guy came, this was out the back, and he came to the back gate and opened it and just came and went, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Ooh.
And I was like, "Well, I'm throwing away the bottles." He's like, "It's fucking 4 a.m. I went, "Yeah, so they're going to be here in 2 hours, so I've got to get it done."
Oh dear.
"Why haven't you got it done already?" I was like, "I've been busy." You know,
You lied.
well, very much. I was praying that the next question wasn't "What do you do?" Because if it was,
Well, what's your job then, lad? What are you, some kind of miner?
there was just no answer that would satisfy. But I was like, "Well, I have to do it." And then I made our landlords sound like absolute monsters. Like, look, if they come here and there's even a single
They catch
bottle,
me with another bottle.
that is it. That's it. I mean,
They
I'm off.
collapse the ceiling.
I'm off to military school. And
It is the worst noise, people putting bottles away.
but it did sadly
It's like
turn out that he
cuts through sleep.
knew them.
Oh, that's a shame.
So the next day they were like, "Oh, we hear that you described us as this to our
As
neighbour."
bottle-hating monster creeps.
But they came.
Actually, I'll have you know, I love the bottle bank.
They came round, and I had done I tell you what, I'd done a good job. I don't like cleaning, but I'm quite good at it when I have to be. And I had scrubbed this house, I'd dusted, I'd hoovered, I'd cleared everything. They came round, and I remember this so clearly. They came in, and they came into the kitchen, and I had a train to catch in about half an hour's time. And they were looking round, and literally the first thing that the woman did, because it was a couple who owned this house, she went over to the oven and opened the panel at the bottom, which I didn't even know was a door. It was just a sheet of metal. And she opened it, she went, "It's full of crumbs." I was like, I have never, ever, ever seen that in my life. Like, what? You have been in this house and asked us to clean so many hundreds of times, and you have never even implied that the oven had a seventh compartment.
A crumb basement.
Yeah. And she was like, "Well, what am I supposed to clean that?" I was like, "Well, yeah." It's not my fucking house.
What does it do? Why does it exist?
Oh, God only knows. So that landlords can rape you with their fucking taxes.
Their deposits.
It's so dreadful.
Aren't private landlords some of the most despicable people you'll ever come across in your life? Not necessarily on an individual basis. I'm sure there are lots of them out there who are nice people, or at least pretend to be.
No, I don't think so.
But as a class, they should all be strung up and shot into the next life.
Did you see that lovely expose on how no tax they've paid recently in London?
Yeah, they love a bit of that.
Fun.
They love a bit of no tax. What's that? Exploit my entire generation so you don't have to pay anything. What's that? You got free university education and got on the housing ladder by just looking in the direction of a door once. Good on you, lad. I'll stay here with my avocados and apple crates, living on the street. But anyway... That's all.
I'll update the LinkedIn profile with my latest fucking freelance, no paid bullshit.
Gig economy, you say?
In the hopes that...
Exploit me more.
What about that guy who posted the job listing the other day that asked for 7 years experience in a programming language that's been around for 2.5 years? This is the most accurate summary of the current jobs market available.
That's so good.
Oh
dear.
Here's the really depressing thing about applying for jobs is that when I came out of university at 21, and I had thankfully, very luckily, a job lined up. I fucked away into the ether eventually. but
like all good things,
I'm sure we'll come to that in the questionnaire at some point.
Yes, question 28.
But I was sort of still looking at jobs at that time anyway, and I was looking at it thinking, it's saying here that you need, at least 2 years. This is a graduate job. You need 2 years experience in a professional environment in this particular field for that. That means that you'd have to be at least 24 and applying for this job. And I was thinking, God, imagine earning £21,000 when you were 24. That'd be so depressing. And I'm kind of slowly looking at the calendar thinking, I'm months away, and I'm looking at jobs that pay $4,000 a year less.
Look, I'm 25 in December, and I've eaten one crumb in the last year. And let me tell you, it was from the bottom of an oven in the secret drawer. I'll tell you why that drawer exists. It's how I eat.
Isaac's had so little employment that his total national insurance contributions wouldn't even cover a single plaster on the NHS.
I paid for, those when you get a stitch and they first have to just swab it with a tiny little Q-tip. That's 2 of those. That's my grand.
And I'm sure they were grateful.
Well, I do what I can, right? Yes, it's all very depressing, is the upshot of that.
Or the downshot.
Yeah, it's some kind of shot, though, nonetheless. I think we should barrel in, as we promised, boldly, just with a kind of learned numbness to our circumstances, which, let us remind ourselves, much more fortunate than many, which it makes it even sadder on the whole.
Yes.
For both above and below the spectrum. We were doing this questionnaire, right? Since we did it, I've looked it up a bit more, and by since, I mean in the last hour, to find out a bit more about the origins of it. And I didn't do a lot of research, but the one website I came across said that Proust never came up with this questionnaire, but he took it twice in his life. so now it just seems to have come from somewhere else. It's like just appeared.
So what you're saying is we've done it half as many times as Proust ever did, but it's got we've put his name on it.
Yeah, and also what I've learned is that most of the James Lipton Inside the Actor Studio questions are not included in the original formation, because he credits his version to a French TV host who credits his version to Proust, who credits his version to just having done it when he was 13. So basically it's a very confusing lineage, and I'm beginning to doubt whether these questions really will give us the insight that was promised from that perspective of like, I thought they were from this authoritative novelist. Now it just could be like Larry down the street has come up with some questions that he likes to ask if he's going to try and pull a bird.
Right, so it's Proust's uncle's questionnaire.
That's him, that for some reason he's shoved into Proust's prepubescent hands at the age of 13 to take part in. But we were on question 6, and we thought, until we get bored of it at least, we thought we'd just carry on working through them.
It's
because
good.
they're a good like springing off point, jumping off point, cross with springboard, that was, into anecdotes and things. Or, I mean, question 7, we've basically already asked, because it's just, what is your current state of mind? Which is a bit like, just, how's it going? With specific relation to your employment status. Question 7, what is your current state of mind?
What was question 6? Did we do question 6?
Yeah, we did. It was, what is your greatest extravagance?
Oh, we did do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's my current state of mind?
Yeah. And why?
Do you think this question is intended to mean literally at the moment of asking, or in general in this part of your life?
Well, I think it's probably more interesting if it's like a trajectory to it rather than just, my arm's cold because it's by the window.
Because, I mean, more generally, or more specifically, my state of mind is, as the last 4 minutes of conversation have revealed, very job, money, anxiety related. But more generally, it's very employment and finance anxiety related.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, you're right. It's quite a macro overview.
Yeah.
When you zoom out.
So
big picture.
I just feel like...
Well, that says it all. Question 8.
No,
I'm joking.
It's just frustrating that that we are in a system where I would have hoped that, even though I fluked it, a first-class degree would help me to something.
No. Help you to write about your disgust for
very
the
much.
modern life. But little more.
It's just sometimes when I see people who are objectively less talented.
This comes back to what we were talking about last episode.
Doing
about the trait you most deplore in others.
Doing objectively better.
Yeah.
I just sometimes wonder what sort of system is running things.
Not a meritocracy, but I guess there are benefits to it not being. There was an act, I won't name them, because I don't know why, but I haven't. They're a really big drag act. I think if they're not Soho Theatre, then they're like another really huge one that are known in London and stuff. They do really well, is what I'm getting at. And they came and did a slot at Pollyanna and were just incredibly underwhelming. And they couldn't really sing. They didn't dance. They had like decent outfits, but so does people just walking past you at a bus stop. And I don't think you can build an act out of that. And I was just watching it from the side of the stage, thinking like, if you were one of the other performers here who hasn't done well and hasn't been able to get a slot, or if you have, is probably worse, because the amount of money people lose at the Fringe on flyers and venue fees and just all the bullshit that goes with it. Like, if you're someone of any talent watching that, you'd just be like, well, the world is cruel, fundamentally. A dark, unfair, dismal place where talent is ignored. So I guess, yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I have, to answer the question for me, I have all that in mind. I keep that. That's about 40% if we treat it like,
Right.
you know, that meter in Pointless that just goes to see if they've got a pointless answer. That's about a 40. But then the rest of it, I have a very, like, surprisingly positive attitude to, it'll probably work out in the end.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like there's some, it's just a bit of a dick while you're going through the struggling phase.
Yeah,
and struggling again, I'm using very relatively. I'm not
Yeah,
like
of course.
a hopeless.
You're not in need of McDonald's scratch cards or whatnot.
No, I mean if Danielle came along with a buy one get one free, I'd just throw it right back in her face and be like,
Yeah,
Danielle, this is for you. Keep it.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with you, but I always feel as though that's more through apathy than optimism. Like it's just a kind of well, it had better be all be okay, or else
Or I'm going on a big spree.
I'm going
At
out with
least
a fucking
if I do one
bang.
thing in my life, I'm not going out without a Wikipedia page for something. So hold on to your hats, guys. It's going to get stabby. It's going to be big. Don't do that. That'd be bad. Especially now that we've seeded the idea on the podcast.
Yeah.
Because I'll probably be done as an accomplice.
So
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So yeah.
I think it's a bit of both, though.
Oh well, good for you.
Yeah. Well, look,
Bless you.
I'll be the optimistic tide that rises all ships. Just like it didn't for all that money.
For all the ones that sank.
That's them. Okay, question 8. I've been looking forward to this one. What do you consider the most overrated virtue?
Oh, that is an interesting question.
If you haven't got an answer straight away, then I'll launch into
Go
my tirade.
straight into your tirade, please.
So it's not really a virtue so much
Good
as...
answer to the question then.
But look, I see the question and I innovate.
You run
right?
with
I'm
it.
progressing it to the next level.
Just like
I'm trying to
James
get to the
Lipton
core of it.
did, and that other
Yeah,
guy,
exactly.
and Proust himself.
I think Proust, someone just asked him how he was and he answered 30 different times and this is how he came up with it. What I'm going to answer with is what's like the simplest way of putting it? Okay, you're on Snapchat. It's late at night. Maybe you're looking like you got a Snapchat from someone who's at a club. It's like 3 a.m. But you, in your stories, you're like, oh, haven't seen what they're up to in a while. And you give it a click. And what you'll get is a 360, often from a kind of spinny chair perspective of an office. And the caption, it will be completely empty. It'll be pitch black outside. And the caption will be like, they'll do that thing where it shows the time. You know how you can show like the time
Yeah.
or the date or the weather. It'll be that thing where it shows the time. And it'll be like, another late night at the office, hashtag London life. And I think of those people whose idiocy single-handedly undermines the workers' rights movement that people have literally died for hundreds of years. I think they should be lined up alongside the private landlords and fed to whatever the beast Alton Towers pretends controls Nemesis, because they are the most enabling fucking bullshit idiot cunts, and I hate them. It's the worst thing that it's bullshit jobs is how it's known. There's a guy, let me Google his name because it's such an interesting article. Bullshit jobs. That's the sound of me typing live. It is a man called David Graeber, who's an economist. No, he's an anthropologist. He's written an amusing essay on the nature of work in modern economy, which seems to involve lots of people doing meaningless tasks they hate. I'll quote from it because it's interesting. In the year 1930, John Maynard Keynes predicted that by century's end, technology would have advanced sufficiently that countries like Great Britain or the US would have achieved a 15-hour work week. There's every reason to believe he was right. In technological terms, we're quite capable of this. And yet, it didn't happen. Instead, technology has been marshalled, if anything, to figure out ways to make us all work more. In order to achieve this, jobs have had to be created that are effectively pointless. Huge swathes of people in Europe and North America in particular spend their entire working lives performing tasks they secretly believe do not really need to be performed. The moral and spiritual damage that comes from this situation is profound. It is a scar across our collective soul, yet virtually no one talks about it. And the whole essay just talks about how, because he has the kind of job that if you're at a cocktail party and you're like, oh, what do you do? I'm an anthropology professor at a university and I write articles and books. People are like, oh, that's interesting. And then he's like, well, what do you do? And they're like, oh, you don't want to hear about it. It's just, city bullshit. Like, yeah, I just sort of move money around. And he said he'd encountered that situation so many times that it got him thinking about what's going on there. And I think the kind of way that impacts individual life starts from people who are just weirdly loyal to companies and like think that any amount of work and self-sacrifice is inherently good rather than good work being good and good sacrifice being good. It's just an innate good. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a shame that we're in a situation where the majority of jobs seem kind of boondoggle. Do you remember that term from, isn't it like a New Deal kind of America, Roosevelt?
Yes, I think so.
And you learn about it in GCSE history, and your teacher says, oh, they used to pay elderly women to sit in the corner of museums and turn the lights on and off as people came in and out. What a preposterous idea, just to get people into work. And you're like, oh my God, that is silly. What a ridiculous job to get anyone to do. And then you think, oh, what do you do? And they go, oh, I'm a coordinator for meetings. And you go, oh, your email.
Oh, clever.
You're the very idea of correspondence.
What a job.
Just put into a human form.
And I think it's sad because to criticise that idea sounds like you're criticising people who work hard and do jobs that they're paid for. But it's not an attack on people. It's an attack on a system.
Attack on the system in which people have to do this in order to live. Yeah. And it's unnecessary.
There's another quote where he says, a world without teachers or dock workers would soon be in trouble, but it's not entirely clear how humanity would suffer were all private equity CEOs, lobbyists, PR researchers, actuaries, telemarketers, bailiffs, or legal consultants to similarly vanish. He concedes that some might argue that his own work is meaningless and says there can be no objective measure of social value. So, I mean, he hasn't got all the answers, but it's like that Russell Brand quote that is often dallied around the left, where he's like, when I was poor and I complained about inequality, people said I was jealous, and now that I'm rich, people say I'm a champagne socialist or whatever. I mean, he says it nicer than that, but it's one of those problems that any angle you attack it from, you open yourself up to like an ad hominem rather than a debate about the issue.
Yeah.
And pointing out there being a problem isn't the same as saying I have an answer to it. So in answer, Proust, to your not question of what I consider the most overrated virtue, it is work as its own reward when it's not work that you'd actually do if you had your choice of anything.
Yeah.
Meaningless, busy work that people then end up spending hours of their life prioritizing above
living.
Yeah. I just find it tragic.
That is a good answer.
Thanks. Well, what's yours?
I've been having
I hope yours is just like beauty. I hate telling the truth.
I've been having a think. And I don't necessarily despise a virtue in particular, but what I despise is the unnecessary importance that people put on the idea of a virtue by itself rather than the application of virtues.
Right.
So,
give me an example.
So, one that applies probably to us and certainly to this podcast is kindness. Yes. A very traditional Christian virtue. It's the opposite of envy. Like the idea that you should always be nice to others, that you shouldn't worry about what you want and what you're kind of pining for. It should be about benevolence and whatnot. And whilst I agree with that, I don't agree with people who place the idea of kindness as the most important thing in the world, where it supersedes things such as basic morality, where the idea of appearing nice, such as we've discussed in our much lauded political episode, where the idea of being nice and kind and civil should triumph.
Interject with a Sondheim quote to perfectly elucidate this point.
Do.
That's why I gasped in joy, because the witch in Into the Woods, just before she's about to like rescind all her power and fuck off because she's just fucking done with these idiots, she says that, just for some context, the plot point is that there's a little boy, Jack, who's fucked off a giant, and the giant's now going mental and just treading on people left, right,
Jack,
and
as in of the beanstalk.
That's the one. There are giants in the sky, he says, and then one comes right out of the sky and treads on his mum. So it can all happen. And she's got this line because she's trying to get them to give up the boy to the giant's wife or something, because one of the giants was killed, and then another giant is like fucked off about it, and they won't. And she's like, "You're so nice. You're not good. You're not bad. You're just nice. I'm not good. I'm not nice. I'm just right." So it's about the difference between being correct and being that kind of simpering, saccharine, like, oh, but yeah, it's like
you shouldn't say that.
The appearance of morality rather than doing the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm trying to vie away from, although we're constantly being brought back to it, the horrid phrase, but also perhaps more horrid reality of virtue signalling. The idea that you purport virtue rather than actually embodying it.
Yeah.
But as well...
rather a watered down term.
Yeah, but as well in this, I apply this idea to people who feel as though they ought to adhere to certain virtues regardless of situation. There's nothing fucks me off more than if you're listening to an interview with one of your favourite artists, whether they be an author or whether they be a musician or a filmmaker, and they're asked, so what's your favourite song, or what's your favourite piece that you've done, essentially, and they go, oh, I don't know, I haven't, I don't really think about that, I try not to judge my own work and whatnot. And that kind of fake humility where you're like, just what's your fucking favourite, mate? We've all got one. Why haven't you? It's the one. Yeah. It's the one thing that I quite like, or that I quite admire Tom York from Radiohead for, whom I otherwise despise. But
why? He does seem, by all accounts, everyone who's met him hates him.
Because he's a
that I know pretentious
anti-Palestine wanker.
There you go. That's the 3 for 3.
But I have listened to an interview where he goes, "Oh, so what's your favourite piece?" And he's like, "It's this. This is my favourite song we've done." And you're like, "Well, yeah, you should just be able to." It's not arrogant to say that as one of the most successful bands of the last 3 decades that you've written a good song. You shouldn't have to kowtow to this idea that you should be humble in your success and say, oh, I don't know, we just put it out there for the fans and they love it. Fuck off. Like, you must think that something you've done is good. What is it? Just say.
I think it's mean as well. It kind of, it's shutting off. I guess if you have like personal reasons not to disclose it, then fair enough.
Yeah.
But it's still a bit weird. But it shuts off an avenue of potential connection because you'd be like, oh, that's my favourite thing you've done as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I remember there was like a minor intellectual turning point in my life where I was really into Sting at the time, who I still really like. And I found that he'd done a cover of a fairly like obscure, it's certainly not a pop song. It's like a German folk song that had been covered by like an opera singer that I liked.
Yeah.
And realizing that people you like the work of, you like because you share the same taste.
Yeah.
It's really obvious, but it's also slightly revelatory because then like when you see artists that you like are friends or admire each other's work, then it just validates that you're kind of on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
And if someone came out and was like, I don't know, what's a good example? If like J.K. Rowling came out and said that Chamber of Secrets was her favourite Harry Potter book, I'd be like, well, you fluked your way into success. it's objectively shit compared to the rest.
It's
Like
the
what you're
worst
up to.
one you've ever done.
Snake in the walls, get out. Also, I'm not sure I do
Elvis
hold
Voldemort.
Romeo G. Voldemort. Oh, guess what? We went on a ghost walk, which I'm going to talk about in the next episode
Thank
because
goodness.
I have such a good ghost walk story
I'm so
in York
excited.
that I'm sure I've told you before. But amongst other things, other madnesses, which I'll get into, it ended in a churchyard or kirkyard, as they call it in Scotland, wherein there are graves because she wrote Harry Potter in Edinburgh, so they fucking go on about it all the
course.
time. But it has visible graves for someone McGonagall, someone Lupin, and a full Tom Riddle grave. That's cool, isn't it?
Ooh, that is cool. Elvis, you say?
Yeah. That's him. Romeo G. Tom
Detlev.
Junior Riddle. That's him. Detlev sounds like the kind of insult that if you had to swear at an alien and it couldn't speak any language, but you had to come up with a single word.
Cunting Detlev.
Yeah, it amasses all human hatred into one 2-syllable portion that you can just spit out at that stupid alien.
Sounds like something Godfrey
back
Bloom
home.
would have called Eastern Europeans. You know, and I hear all these fucking Detlevs coming over from Poland, Bulgaria. Something that,
Dear. Yes, it does.
something that the news would have lampooned him for.
Another Detlev.
Imagine being Godfrey Bloom. Imagine being someone so preposterously offensive that UKIP got rid of you. The UKIP said no, he's an
I
embarrassment.
bet he wears it as a badge of honour, the fucking Detlev.
I bet he does.
Should we make that our new thing?
All
Should we
right.
try and spread the word
Okay.
Detlev around?
You
like dud.
fucking Detlev.
Oh my god, she's such a Detlev. Just leave me alone. Okay, yeah, I need to like internalise it, and then I'm going to start spreading it like tendrils in the mist.
So come on, what's the next question?
Question 9. On what occasion or occasions, that was my parenthesis there. I just like to embellish,
okay.
you know, I like to give it a personal, that's a
Everyone
sure
else who's done it has, so why not you?
thing. I'm just they're going to start calling it the Bernier Doyle questionnaire within a decade. Wait and see. On what occasion do you lie?
On what
Over to
occasion
you.
do you lie? Do I?
And I don't think it means like Christmas. My mum's birthday.
That's an interesting question.
Why?
I lie all the time.
Oh no. But what do you mean? Do you mean you lie with your eyes?
With my touch.
His touch was a lie.
No,
His eyes sealed the deal.
I as in, you know, I lie to my employers, to myself.
Oh well, yeah, they don't count as
No,
people.
exactly. So I mean, I lie to cover up jobs I haven't done and won't ever be doing.
You've managed to ring it back to employment like an absolute
I
gem.
know. I was thinking of this last episode that we kept doing
Yeah.
this, but yeah. So I do that. I suppose ordinarily I lie in order not. I lie for a middle ground between not hurting others and also not exposing myself. It's always a
I guess
kind
that's
of
probably the best.
yeah.
best
It's always a
time to
kind of middle ground. Like if I lie,
Yeah.
it's normally because I don't want someone else to be upset, but within that there is almost certainly an aspect of I also don't want to be blamed for this.
And also, if someone's upset, you have to deal with that upset
And
often.
that's fucking effort.
Yeah. So I guess lying for convenience has got to be the top of most people's
Yeah,
list.
I think
'Cause it's
so.
I don't really know what they're getting at with this question. Like, what are they hoping we're going to say? They're hoping that we're going to reveal that I'm like a jewel thief. Because what else is there? People like, why else would you lie if not for
I
benefit
lie.
in some
I lie when I radicalise people online.
fuck? Edit that bit out. I don't think that's a great question. I'm afraid Marcel or whichever distant friend or relative chucked it in. I'm trying to just glean any more interest out of it. Maybe like lie. I think lying by omission is more interesting than direct lying.
Yeah.
I'm quite hypocritical about lying because I have a bit of a god complex like Dumbledore has, and I really identified with Dumbledore when he didn't tell Harry that he's a Horcrux. Spoilers. And if that has annoyed you, please get in touch. If I've just revealed that plot twist, I'll fly to your hometown and we can fight or something, or I'll hug you. One of the two, maybe both. Because I like the idea. I find the burden of knowledge quite poetic. So one of my least favourite things is if people conceal information from me. Not least of all because I'm quite obsessive about finding out information.
You really,
like a hoarder.
I mean, I cannot explain to listeners how true that is of Isaac.
And I don't mean like I'm not a stalker. That's a lot of effort. And I don't care.
Not necessarily
much,
by a legal definition, but by a moral definition, perhaps.
No, look, I just like to have a holistic overview. I like to know all the facts in a situation, and if that situation is like a person or an event, like I like to have it all. But then I feel once I've dissected and like gone through that information, I don't feel it's immoral to filter some of that out when providing it to someone else, which I guess is very egotistical, because you're kind of saying like, well, I can handle this and you can't.
Yeah.
Whether like whatever that is, but that's my cross to bear, guys. I'll work on it for you.
Thanks very much for your honesty there, Isaac.
Question 10, I think, is another quite boring one. What do you most dislike about your appearance?
Oh, I don't know. I'm interested.
I don't feel like you're going to get much depth.
No, but I'm interested to hear this from you.
Well, mine's another slightly off-piste one, because I really don't feel like... I was about to say something that would get me arrested.
What were you
I'm
going
going
to
to say,
say?
I'm going to rephrase it as, I don't really feel like I live in my body. Is that okay?
Well, okay is a relative term, isn't it? As in, it's not by itself going to get you in trouble, but it is going in the dossier that will inevitably form my defence.
Oh dear. What I just mean is I've never felt a particular attachment to like
This
my
corporeal
physicality.
form.
Yeah, I just like, sometimes when you look in the mirror, don't you just think like, wow, I live in that.
I've never thought that once.
That's so weird. I think that all the time. You catch your eye in like a shop, like because shops have mirrors everywhere to try and keep you in. Is my theory. Is that a known thing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's not my theory anymore. Fair. But yeah, so you catch your eye and you're just like, oh, it's me. That's what I live in. I have to walk around in that big meat skeleton. So, but then my one is going to be, to go back to my question, my answer about what I'm scared of being death. What I most dislike about my appearance is anything that portends death or like that I have to deal with. So, for example,
this is the most
Edinburgh,
interesting answer you've given to any question ever. This is years of my own theories confirmed in a few sentences.
Oh, no. In Edinburgh, what I didn't like was I was like I have quite sensitive skin every so often. It's sensitive to like weird things though, not like makeup for being in plays or like Halloween things, but to things like water. So there are some types of water that will just really fuck me
You're
over.
a fucking mental case. You're not well. You're not well.
What did I say?
You're
that triggered that
sometimes
response?
sensitive to some sort of water.
That's normal,
Get
I think. There's
the
like
fuck
hard or soft
out.
water. Although I did go on a website that was like, you can put your postcode in and see if this water will be bad for your skin. And it wasn't.
Stop.
But I'm here to say that it was.
Stop talking.
So anyway, I had like a bit of like, I don't know, like slight eczema around my eyelid. Like it was just really dry. So I bought E45. And every day that I woke up and had a shower, it would like inflame and I'd have to put E45 on to get it back to normal. And there were points where I was staring at myself in the mirror, as you do, where you like look at your own eyes to try and see your brain. And I thought I could scratch off this face and live my life without one. So I guess that is what I most dislike, is just anything wrong. But otherwise I'm all fine with it. Don't really think about it very much. How about you? Declan? Please tell me there's someone else on this podcast. Imagine if I just woke up and I was in front of like a court. That was me just giving a spiel.
One day that clip is going to be played in front of witnesses.
I don't think that's that weird.
going to have
what
to-
about that is odd?
Well, the bit where you talk about scratching off your own face or looking into your eyes to see your brain isn't exactly every day.
That bit was a joke.
Wow, well, good luck defending that particular idea.
It was all a joke, right? It's a comedy podcast. Gosh.
Well, my answer of my nose probably
Oh,
probably pales somewhat in
Underwhelming.
comparison to your absolute Nietzschean denial of your own existence. It's your rejection of the
dear.
body as an idea, and your
Well-
complete devotion to the idea of infinite and immortal spiritual life.
that's me. Live on forever as a machine, you say?
I just
Sign me
don't
up.
like that. It is a similarly mental concern, but my nose is big enough that it is noticeably large and it annoys me. And that in any caricature I've ever had drawn of me, it is the focus, obviously.
But I think isn't that like the standard? Like they're not going to make your eyes too
No,
big
but
or
of
something.
course they do.
And
If
you
you've
should
got
like
big
anime.
eyes, then that's what they do.
I don't know. I've never had a caricature.
But it's not big enough that if you say, oh, like my nose, I feel a bit annoyed. My nose is too big. That people go, yeah, no, you have got a big nose. Like it's.
Do you feel
grossly
like
big.
if you went and had like rhinoplasty, people would judge you more for having had it than they wouldn't be like, okay, that's understandable.
Well, yeah, exactly. I feel it's
okay.
very similar to being ginger, right?
Where it's like on the cusp of being
like
a
where
problem.
my line about being ginger is that it's enough to get you bullied, but it's not enough to be a diversity hire. Where it's like right on that edge of people will still fucking hate you for it, but you're not a race. So
It's like enough for you to be bullied about, but not really enough that anyone's going to do anything about it en
God,
masse.
no.
They're not going to be like, okay, guys, it's Ginger Awareness Day. I need you all to go and like, I don't know, buy some of those red biscuits and hand
buy
them
some
out.
Factor 50, drive the prices
Yeah.
down.
You try living a day in their shoes. Yeah, I know what you mean. That's on the peripherals of a problem.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess is its own problem. Okay, fair enough. Well, quite different answers from us there, but
Yeah.
that's the dynamic.
I expect none of your tirade to be edited out, please. I've had to listen to it, so should our listeners.
Wow, I wouldn't call it a tirade. I think it was more a manifesto of sorts. If you feel like
we'll
that,
see what the Murdoch Empire thinks it should be called in a few weeks, shall we?
Wow. Okay. How are we doing for time? Okay, this is fun. Number 11. Which living person do you most despise?
Oh,
Which living person do you most despise?
oh,
This is difficult, isn't
that
it?
is very difficult. There's so many.
Yeah. I feel like despise is quite a particular... I don't know if they're going for a very particular kind of dislike, but despise to me immediately pushes out a lot of people who I hate, but I don't have time. Like, they're not on my mind a lot. I feel like if I despise someone, then I'm going to just remember them every so often and be filled with
Yeah.
like fury about their like the fact that they're still allowed to breathe my oxygen. And I don't know, I think it's quite temporary. It can be someone, like for a while it was when we were getting big into old Norm Finkelstein.
It was
It was just
Dershowitz.
whenever I thought of Dershowitz.
What a
I was
cunt.
like,
He
how
was
is
on
this
my
man
list as well.
allowed? But I think despising anyone, it's something if you admire anything about neo-Nazis, it's the enthusiasm, right? Like, they put a lot of effort into hating people. And it's something that Louis Theroux points out in his documentary where he goes to meet all the white supremacists. He's like, you guys, like, this is not just something you do, like in that Father Ted thing where he's like, not sure I have a lot of time
yeah.
for your racism, father, because I've got the farm until midday or whatever.
At night, I just like a cup of tea.
It's like, well, how do you cram it all in? You make it a whole lifestyle choice. And I feel like I just don't have... If I cared about anything as much as white supremacists care about how, like, downbeaten the white race is, then I think I'd have an answer that was better. But as it is, it's a lot of energy to despise anything, and I haven't got the time for
But
it.
if you had to pick someone,
At the moment, if I had to pick someone, it would probably be... Piers Morgan because of that article you sent me today that got me thinking, and then watching clips of him again. He represents a very particular kind of... He's like a figurehead for a
Ignorance.
whole movement of people who I hate.
Yeah.
So that's today's one. But, I mean, it would change day by
We'll
day.
link to that article, shall we, in the...
Yeah, it was a really good article.
I'm...
How about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I go through lots of phases. Again, for a while it was Dershowitz. For a while after I watched the George Galloway documentary, it was Tony Blair again.
Oh, yeah. He comes around every few years.
But
Like a bad outbreak of gonorrhea.
then it sort of like, ordinarily, I suppose, it would hang between the Clintons, just as a couple of people to despise for everything, literally everything that they are between them responsible for. But I think if it had to be a single person, and I had to say one person who deserves death more than any other individual, I think the prize must inevitably go to Kissinger.
I thought you were going to say Kissinger. I was going to jump in with Kissinger. Yes. I mean, yeah, fair enough.
I mean, the man is the most textbook definition of war criminal that there more than I think any other individual in history.
Yeah. He's like, if you got him in the top trumps war criminals game,
that is it. You've won.
Just eat the card
he's like
and go
He's
home.
the Exodia of top trumps war criminals version. You just lay him.
I really hope there is this
You just
version.
lay him down, and like everyone else is like banned. You just get their sets, and they have to go home, and they're never allowed to play top trumps again. The man is responsible for practically every single war crime that is definable.
And he has a lot of legacy that even today impacts.
Well, yeah, like
his
the
foreign
realpolitik
approach
kind
just
of
shaped a generation of evil.
But beyond that, it's not just that he did those things and that they've gone unpunished, but it's that he is still revered. He's not. It's not like he's cast out. So he's just on his own. He's still earning millions of dollars every year from being.
Do you think it's because his name starts with the word kiss? Do you think that softens his touch?
I mean, I would, but then you have to look at his face as well, and it's fucking horrid.
Oh, yeah.
Like
That'll harden
and I mean,
the touch.
to tie it into some of the other things that I mentioned, I say things to mean monsters that I mentioned, is that he was one of the quotes on the cover of Hillary Clinton's book.
Oh, really?
And you think, like, how little self-reflection do you have to be to want Henry Kissinger's approval, to want his love, his affection, to want his insight, to want his praise for you on your own book?
Yeah.
That's like, it's like having the endorsement of Stalin. You're like, oh yeah, great guy. You really knew how to run things.
Wouldn't it be a shame to be like Stalin's favourite indie band or something?
Just
Like,
inadvertently.
when he was like up and coming, he was just like, like if he was now and he was like, I'm really into the Arctic Monkeys, just tweeted one day. Do you think they would get like burned alive?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Goes to show toxicity is not a singularity, it spreads, doesn't it? All throughout the world, like a big wet marmite dripping out of a stalagmite.
That's hardly word of mouth is best of mouth, is it?
Well, what is these days? Save that for what's your favourite phrase, which is a question I'm adding to the list.
Oh, goodness. What's the next one?
Oh, no, there actually is one for which we can talk about
that's
phrases.
good.
But the next one is, what are we on now? Question 11. Okay, these next... No, let's do 3 more because then we end with the one I just mentioned. The next 2 are going to be relatively quick fire, I think. What is the quality you most like in a man, and why?
Well, this sounds like I'm being asked it by a dating website.
But the next one is, what is the quality you most like in a woman?
Oh, that also sounds like I'm being asked it by a dating website.
Yeah, it does. I kind of, not to get all progressive.
No, but I don't really have a different answer.
Query. Yeah, exactly. I don't really see unless they just specifically mean like one of them is just about people in general, and one of them is about like romantic part.
Should we do it like that?
Maybe we should take it in that way.
So what is
the quality you most like in a person?
In humanity.
And then what is the quality you most like in a partner?
Okay. For humanity, a willingness to admit that you were wrong.
Ooh. Is that something you've encountered struggle with?
It's something that I've encountered struggle with myself and with other people. Mm-hmm. Like, I have kind of changed a lot of my views based on listening to people I know, to reading, to just general inquiry.
Hillary Clinton's book.
Yeah.
Really won you round in a big way.
And so
it is her turn.
And so I've had... Don't be saying that.
No,
don't be bringing it up, because we haven't got time. We're on 53 minutes. We don't need it to be 253 minutes. But I just think that and this is the thing, is that I mean it for big things and small things. Mm-hmm. So I mean it for my political views have changed quite substantially over the last few years. And so I'm currently kind of dealing with the consequences of that, of changing my opinions and justifying that to people. But I also mean it in terms of, if you say off the bat that you fucking hate a band, and then you listen to a song and you really like it, and it turns out it was by that band, just have the balls to say that you liked it, and don't be a prick.
Yeah.
I cannot stand people. The worst person, this isn't necessarily an admitting you were wrong thing, but the worst sort of person in the whole world is someone who cannot admit that they like something that they didn't know about first. Maybe it should have been my answer for the virtue question.
Yeah.
The person I'm on about, the person where you'll put on a song and it'll be on, and they're clearly loving it, and they try and take a sly little look at the iPod to see who it was and who it was by, rather than just saying, "What's this song? I don't know it, but I like it. What's the name of it?" They have to pretend that they know it, and then look at it and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm a big fan of so and so." Just why don't you go fuck yourself? Just admit that you didn't know the song and that you liked it, right? And then we can talk about it. Don't try and be the smarmy prick who pretends that he knew it all.
It's just not...
Sorry, it's been troubling me for a while. I had to get that out there.
It's just like a waste of time, though. What do you get from it? You just look like you knew one more band than you do. Like, no one's keeping track. I don't care. Even in my obsessive documenting of people's likes and dislikes,
even on
interests,
all those
whereabouts.
Spreadsheets you've got about everyone we know.
Even in my Google Docs, I don't have,
Google
which
Keep.
bands people have proven. I Google keep it to myself, every element of it, about their band knowledge in a numerical sense. Yeah, I agree. I don't like that. And it comes back again. We were so correct with that answer about the disjunct between the reality of the situation and your internal assessment of it. Like, it's such a weird trajectory for that to take, though. It's so meaningless. That's a good one. I like that one. I don't know what mine was going to be. It might just be something like that Hanlon's razor thing of do not attribute to malice what can be more easily attributed to incompetence. Like, I think something about just having a bit of faith that, like, in people in general is probably a good thing to have. Not being too jaded and just being like giving everyone a chance.
It's about a healthy balance, isn't it? Like, don't be naive, but don't also be overly skeptical and cynical.
Yeah, don't be defined by it. You can follow Declan at
Declan exactly
on Twitter.
don't subscribe to my I'm 17 and I think this is edgy Twitter handle, because
you can change it to that's a shame Declan or something if you want to go full out branding. Why not?
That's a shame Declan makes it sound like I have a real inferiority complex.
That's a shame Declan. Tell you what, after everything you tweet, I'll reply. That's a shame Declan. Sorry you had to share that with the world in 140 wastes of eyeball time. Okay, question 13, penultimate question for this episode. What is the quality we've adjusted you most like in a romantic partner?
Well, I have quite an interesting story about this, in that I have a very clear memory of being in year 9 German class. And we had to do pretty much this exact task. You had to write a description of, what would your perfect girlfriend be? Right? In German, obviously.
You're in a boys' school.
I was, yeah.
This seems like torturous.
Yeah.
It seems like they're taking the
If you were next door...
It's like if they went into a gym and was like, what would be your ideal ice cream sundae to appear in front of you now? Tell me in German.
So we had to write it, and there were lots of people putting their hand up, kind of trying their luck, asking for words that obviously they shouldn't be asking for.
Classic little jokers, were they?
Yeah, what's German for breasts?
How'd you say Beyonce in German?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so there were lots, and then I wrote down the physical aspect. It was some kind of, I don't know, I think it was just Nigella Lawson or something. Pretty much. And I wrote it down,
Niche.
and then it came on to the personality bit, and I was trying not to just do clever, funny, the cliches, and I was thinking, what do I really want or need from someone who's going to be my girlfriend? And so I kind of boldly raised my hand and waited my turn, and the teacher, Dr. Francis, turned to me and was like, yes, Declan, what did you like? I was like, sorry, sir, what's the German word for tolerant?
What's a German word for puts up with my shit?
And it turns out the German word for tolerant is tolerant. So I was,
So you looked like a mug.
I was in luck.
That's good.
But I have always remembered that, because it is something that I have been looking for. Because most people, I tell you what, they think they're tolerant, but then they haven't met me.
Then they spend 34 episodes with you, and they're like, mate, I'm checking out.
That's it. I'm
Our
afraid.
Taiwanese listeners have not been on board of late. I'm afraid I didn't want to tell you, but TW's dropped off the map.
Swedes are gone.
They've packed their bags and sailed right back. Okay, that's a good one. Tolerant. Yes, okay. I wonder what mine is. I think I got in a big argument with a few different ex-girlfriends about this, when they're like, oh, Isaac, I just love that you're so great, or whatever. And I'd be like, that's nice, thanks. And then they're like, so what do you like about me? Well, where to start? You try and dodge that question. You're like, let's deflect with some poetry. So, well, Shakespeare said it first, of course. The year was 16 tickety-4.
Not a great year for the cricket, I hear, but a good year for the wine.
The shilling was up, but the mood was down. The Avon flowed.
And the moon, don't even get me started.
Anyway, what should we do for dinner? And then you just like run away. But no, I remember saying that my favourite thing about an ex-girlfriend was that she was fun and she kicked.
I would kick off. Fuck
Why?
off. Fuck off.
Fun is such a big thing.
It's the least committed word of all time.
No, I'm not having
fun
this.
means
Fun
the
is
least, though.
everything.
It means the least.
Fun is challenging. It's like,
what
it
do you mean, though?
encompasses so
Why
many
was
things.
she fun?
Because it's like, I think it says so much.
That's the most you've ever stuttered in your life. What you mean is you are hoping that it was going to be a brilliant
I'm gonna make
catch-all,
myself sick.
and really, I've pulled you up on the fact it means fuck.
No, it is a brilliant catch-all. I just haven't thought about how, because it catches so much, like a fucking big net that takes up the whole Atlantic Ocean of emotions. Ocean of Emotion would be a great fucking spin-off, like, podcast about 80s love ballads or something.
Sounds like an Enya album.
Yes, it does a bit. It's like 80% Wales and 20% Enya. Well, okay, fun. So, I think fun is something that is quite elusive, right? It's one of those things that you gaze down the hospital corridor to that, past all the people who are like waiting for triage nurses to come and assess them, past all those double doors that you can only go through if you're a surgeon, whilst doing a speech about how, like, she was 8 days away from retirement, get me 12 milligrams of whatever, stat, pass me this, pass me that. And at the end of it, in big letters that shimmer slightly in the fluorescent light, is fun, because it's something that people think they have a lot. But I think if you really think about life, as soon as you assess whether or not you're having fun. You're usually not, because you're out of the moment. So if someone can instill in you that like pure essence of enjoyment for any reason, any number of reasons, then I think that's a really important thing. And if there's not a better word than fun, then is that my fault or is it language's fault? And that's why.
So if any of Isaac's ex-girlfriends are listening, don't worry. He wasn't. He's not lying to you. He's just fobbing you off with nebulous crap.
It's not nebulous. It's so true.
It has reminded me, though,
of
almost
too
Isaac.
true for this universe.
Isaac, you give yourself away with your false sincerity.
Oh no!
It has reminded me, though, of an aspect of my life that I found somewhat regrettable. When I was with my first girlfriend,
Can you give her a fake name?
Okay, Helen.
Okay.
I wrote an article about this recently for Liz Cook. For the magazine.
Shout out to that website. Why don't you plug that website?
To Big Feelers.
Yeah.
I think that's
I don't
what
know
it's
the name.
called. I
okay?
have had it explained to me. It makes more sense now. Well, because it's her and her mum have made it. Her mum's Fiona, and she's Liz. And also,
I thought it was like Feliz Navidad.
Feliz is the Spanish word for happiness or something.
Oh, so it is like Feliz Navidad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I was quite right.
So it makes more sense than it just being a random selection of letters.
Yeah,
That's good.
that someone just dropped on a page.
Yeah,
Okay, fine, I'm back on
So,
board.
but I was writing about it because she was preposterously more attractive than I was. And also, I'd never spoken to a woman in my whole life at that point.
You'd come up with some great Tolerant ones in German class.
Oh my God. I
had
had an idea of the perfect woman.
You were discerning.
So I spent the entire time that we were together certain that she hated me and that she was instead in love with everyone else.
I hear that's a really good basis for
It's a fantastic one. Those
Trisha
guys
told me
over
to
at
get involved.
those guys over at the incel sub will really tell you it's the way to be. But I remember once kind of getting into this, what in retrospect is an absolutely preposterously awkward and dreadful conversation about a specific person that I was sure that she should fancy more than me. And her kind of defending herself and saying, no, she doesn't. And
Was it someone you know or someone famous?
someone I knew.
It's really weird, just not to derail, but when you said that, the first person who came into my head was Ainsley Harriott. I thought Declan's ex-girlfriend was in love with
You thought that I thought that my girlfriend should prefer Ainsley Harriott. He just,
because I was thinking,
have you
like,
seen
what's on
Ready
TV
Steady
back
Cook?
in those days? Yeah.
What, in
He's just
2000?
got so much
This was
charisma.
2012, or no, 2010.
He's still
2010,
famous.
sorry. Yeah, but Ready Steady
That
Cook
was the heyday
wasn't.
for Ready Steady Cook.
I've been on air for about 5 years. But no, so I remember being like, okay, well then, what do you like about me? Which is always a dreadful question to ask. And I remember being really quite annoyed with her answer, which was, you've got a nice smell.
Look, that's an answer to argue with. Fun, by comparison. And
Stop
as a
trying to defend
standalone
yourself.
answer,
This is my fucking story. Your bit's done, mate. You've sold yourself into that particular grave, right?
Oh, well.
But then, years later, 2 girlfriends down the line, she once said the same thing. And so I began to worry that maybe this was the only thing I had going for me, was some kind of like evolutionary pheromone kind of advantage.
Olfactory Declan, your Twitter handle used to be when I first met you. It's like, this guy's weird. Great smell, very odd chat. Always leaning into the
Great
upbreaks.
smell, abusive as fuck, but
Makes me stand downwind on
God,
him.
while you sniff, you're in a heavenly place.
You'd only go out in York if there was a gale force wind
So-
pointing in the direction of the clubs.
So yeah, don't go saying that to potential partners. That's some official that's a shame advice.
That's very good advice. I have a feeling, I might have floated this before, I think we should start an advice section of the show. Because we're worldly people.
We know what we're on about.
Yeah, exactly. We've been around the block. all that Jenny, that all stuff like that. What I'm saying is, send us advice emails. Tas ashamed.
But not naughty's pop culture references.
No, because I ran out of lyrics to it so quickly. Look, final one.
Oh my god!
For today's
Here
episode.
we go.
Which words or phrases do you most overuse? That's
A shame.
It's so weird. I really like the because I think we either talk about it in episode 1 or when we've talked about episode 1 in hindsight. I love going back if I really like a series, or it's more often stuff like a podcast where it's evolving as it goes rather than all written at once, to see like the lineage of ideas. And if no one else enjoys it, then I will always enjoy the fact that in the episode, our pilot, which was, we started with no title for the show, no music, like no concept really. We say that's a shame before we decide to name it that's a shame. Like it just comes up organically. I think that's so nice. And so, yeah, I guess
Didn't we both have a version of it on our lists as well?
Yeah, I think, yes, I can't remember what mine was, but it was something.
I think, yeah, I mean, we do use it as a phrase perhaps too much. Not even in the show, but just in everyday life. That's my kind of.
It was pointed out that a lot of my conversation, and by extension, like yours and Dange's, is quite of its own vernacular.
Yeah, it's very idiomatic, isn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of like phrases and
crime
ways of delivering lines.
Crime is another one.
Crime.
Love to use the word crime as a noun, as a verb, as an adjective.
Yeah,
whatever. That's
over the fringe. I kept calling everything pick of the fringe when it's just like a man throwing up in the street.
Oh yeah,
that was a bit too prominent both years. And then at the moment, my one is not in a big way. Is apparently something I'm overusing. But it entertains me.
I use the word absolutely too much.
Absolute nonsense is another one. That was a title suggestion.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably perhaps a more apt one based on what's happened in the 33 episodes previously.
That's another one. Wow.
Oh my god! Wow has become so prominent.
Do you know the etiology of wow?
No.
So it comes from a song that my girlfriend had to write in year 7. That for some, I don't know what it was. It doesn't sound like music class, and it doesn't sound like anything else. But I think the assignment, and she'll have to email. I was going to say email in, but you can probably just text me to correct. But it was like, write a song that includes some facts.
Do it through the website. Fucking take part like everyone else.
And her line was, an ant can lift 20 times its body weight. Wow, cool. It's just the most nonsense. It's a great song, but the wow and the cool really undermine the facts.
Yeah.
They look back at it like, was that the best I could come up with? It was.
I've realised that another one that I say is, that's a no.
Ooh, that's a no.
Yeah. To so
basically
many
anything
things.
that has its own intonation.
Yeah. I've ended up saying it to like my boss. Where they're like, can you overnight? Are you able to like sweep out the front because there's been a wedding and there's loads of confetti? And I'll be like, ooh, that's a no.
Sir,
what?
That's a no, sir.
What? I mean, well, I'm not doing that. Sorry. I'm trying to think if there.
And you're having employment issues. Surprises me.
Don't go thinking the job at the hotel is on my CV in any sense. That's a hidden gem of my life.
That's just for this podcast.
Yeah, that's just
the only reason you do it now. You're not even paid.
No.
We're paid in anecdotes. We're paid in Alan tying up sisters and brothers in West Royslip
with these flick knives.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, look. We're up to question 14 now. There are 35 in total.
I have a feeling that in the next few days, the people we know that listen to this are going to get in touch with a tirade of phrases that we use far too much.
Yeah, no, and also if you've heard 30, maybe I'd say 36 hours probably averages out, all our episodes. If you've heard that many hours, there must be some phrases that you've heard. Although I guess it happens less when we're talking in this than if we were just down the pub.
I don't know. This is very down the pub.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
I mean, there are obviously some that aren't even worth mentioning because we say them so much, like "fuck off," which is used in so many different ways with many different internet. Fuck off is my favourite. That's my favourite. My favourite thing in the world is typing that, sending "fuck off" as 2 separate messages.
Oh yeah, it's because it just transliterates it so well.
To get that across. Fuck, send, off.
That's
stop.
2 words.
Oh, stop is another one. Stop's one that we use written more than spoken.
Stop.
Whenever, if either of us sends to the other some kind of mad link to nonsense, as is generally the case, the reply is almost invariably some sort of stop.
No, stop. Stop it now. I think the what you mentioned about fuck off on 2 lines is like would be perfect to illustrate why enjambment works as a poetic device. Yeah. Because it so often doesn't, but it sometimes can be so powerful. So maybe we should send that to Milk and Honey's author.
Rupee Kaur, how about you learn not to just start the next line because you fucking fancied it or because you needed room for one of your shit illustrations?
She writes like the Enter Key has a life of its own and is actively trying to sabotage.
There's just someone else there hitting it like a monkey or something.
As a joke. Yeah, it's nonsense. But yeah, we'll pick up from question 15, which is going to be about love.
Oh, I can't wait.
There are some quite happy ones coming up.
Isaac likes to fall in love with fun people.
That's me. If you're a fun person. No, don't go emailing in if you are fun, okay? Stay away.
We're both taken.
Yeah, back off, guys. tas@shame.city.
My girlfriend's tolerant, Isaac's girlfriend's fun.
Together we've misrepresented and almost certainly annoyed them. Sorry, gang.
Thanks, everyone.
If you're not one of our partners, you can reach us at tas@shame.city, tas@shame.city. Send your thoughts. Have we had any emails we should read this week?
I can't quite remember.
Well,
I don't know what.
Next week.
I have such a loose grasp of time in between the previous episodes. My life has been so unrealistically and uncharacteristically busy that I just don't know what's happened in the previous. Yeah. I haven't got any emails in between my last email from Ringer and now. Okay. So that seems to imply that no.
Well, tas@shame.city. Send your thoughts, your feedback. I'd like to hear your answers to some of these questions, people of the world. So if you fancy emailing in to tell us such interesting things as your what you consider the most overrated virtue, your current state of mind, all of that, tas@shame.city. If you need advice, here's a very generic and abstract plug. If you'd like to contribute to an advice segment that we don't do but might do, then send in your questions. They can be hypothetical or not. Put the subject
literary.
Yeah, put the word advice in your subject line, and you can be the inaugural agony aunt nephew
victim.
Yeah, and we'll go from there. How else can people get in touch, Declan?
Well, you can get in touch regularly via the website shame.city/contact, or as you've said, tas@shame.city. Mm-hmm. If they wish to get in touch with us on Twitter, you can get in touch with the show at That's a Shamecast, or you can get in touch with Isaac at IsaacBD, or myself at Tolerant Declan.
Tolerated Declan.
No, I like to think of myself now as the tolerant one.
You've become the German woman you always wanted to be.
No, that's incorrect. Cynical Declan is me. By name, by nature.
What else is there? Tell a friend, pass it on.
Absolutely.
Word of mouth is
it's the best of mouth.
It's the best of your mouth. Like there is no.
Think of a better mouth. Go on. Yeah, think of a think of a better mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't,
that's what I thought.
If you can find a better mouth, email it, tas@shame.city. We'll send you a whole human mouth as a reward. I have some baby teeth I just found in a box. They're mine from when I was a baby. I should specify.
End the podcast now.
It's a tooth that I left for the tooth fairy and she never came.
Stop, that's it. End of the episode.
I was going to say I'll send it to you.
Thanks.
This has been episode 34.
Thanks everyone for listening.
And we'll see you next Wednesday with a prison-based special.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. Necessities, the bare necessities, the bare necessities of life will come to you.